Welcome to the Indie Women Podcast, where we introduce you to the fearless women taking their filmmaking careers into their own hands, showing you how indie films get made. And here's your host, Heather Turman.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Indie Women Podcast, a show dedicated to the women in the indie film world who have found success bringing their projects to life on their own terms. I'm your host, Heather Turman, and this week's episode is what this show is all about. I had the chance to talk with Chloe Chudasama, who is a UK-based producer, who under her company Nocturnal Pictures that she has with her partner, Leroy Kincaide, they self-funded a feature horror film called The Last Rite and got distribution through Samuel Goldwyn Films. So, of course, this is what every indie filmmaker aims for. It's the big dream to make your film your way and have a legitimate, reputable company be willing to distribute it for you so that it pays off financially and, of course, career-wise. And that's what they did. And Chloe walks me through, the decision-making process, how they landed on, like, when they felt they were ready to do a feature. And we talk all about, how she got started as a producer in general, the three short films she did prior to this feature. And what a journey it's been. This is a really informative conversation, and Chloe is super rad, and I just cannot wait to see her film, which is out this month. So in the US anyway. So please, without further ado, enjoy my conversation with Chloe Chudasama.
Hello, welcome.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Chloe Chudasama. Nice to see you.
Thank you for having me. This is great.
Yeah, my pleasure. I haven't had any, female producers who aren't also actors or, pursuing any other aspect of this industry yet. So it's a true pleasure.
Oh, good. No pressure then.
Well, welcome. So you are a producer based in London?
I'm just outside London, so it's about an hour or so south. So a bit greener, but not too far yet.
Beautiful, beautiful. Beautiful. So yeah, I'm not super familiar with the film industry over there, but I love everything that comes out. I think the Brits make the best content.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. So tell me, how did you get started in the industry?
So I guess I wasn't really someone, that kind of grew up on films and, was destined to be in the film industry. I was very much nothing to do with the industry at all. So I come from an events background. So I started actually probably way before that, actually. I was much more into photography. So I started doing photography, did a few fashion shoots, was in the kind of fashion industry very slightly. And that's kind of how I got a bit creative with things. Didn't really know what I wanted to do, was trying to figure it out. So I kind of started doing that. And then I met my partner, who's actually now a director, who's got quite a big influence in what I do. So we were doing photo shoots, then it kind of transcended from there. And I moved into events. So I do a lot of PR stunts, live events, event production. So very much high stress, live. Very much, more stressful than the film industry, I think. So I've kind of done that my whole sort of probably professional career. So managing things all over the world, really, from content to press stunts. Like I've done a lot at Cannes Film Festival. So my experience with managing people, managing budgets and scheduling under a very sort of time sensitive schedule was quite difficult. And that's kind of where my experience come from. But it was more so my partner, Leroy, who's actually first started out as an actor and a wrestler.
Amazing.
And he kind of, he wanted to do more acting, but he's very much, because his build and the fact that he'd done wrestling and trains a lot, he got typecast a lot. It's very much a bigger frame. So he kind of wanted to put together, it started off as a show reel. So he wanted to put that together. He was like, actually, I'm actually gonna put together like a short film so he can use it for more acting work. And that's kind of how it started. He was like, well, why don't you just help out and produce it? I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what producing is. So I kind of done that, and then sort of ended up helping him with his shorts, not really realizing what I was doing was producing. And we kind of had this backwards and forwards. And he was like, your job from, managing events is very much producing, but just a different industry. And I never saw it. And I always thought it was very different. So I kind of done that while I was doing event work. I still do events now. I freelance doing live events. Yeah, and I kind of helped him, and then it got to a point he was like, right, okay, you either want to do it or you just want to help me. Is it something you kind of want to do? And at this point we'd done three short films. And I was like, actually, I really enjoy putting together a team of people, a budget, the schedule, making sure everything happens and being part of that production. So I kind of took the leap of faith, and I actually left my full-time job, very good full-time job, to then start the journey of The Last Rite, which I absolutely knew really nothing. I'd done 3 short films, figuring it out myself, and then sort of jumped into starting to do The Last Rite. But it was kind of
is a feature. So your first feature film. Last Rite, yeah.
Last Rite's feature film. So yeah, I'd done 3 shorts. Very much between that last short film, quitting my full-time job and starting on the feature film, it was kind of like, okay, I need to kind of really get into this and take it seriously without knowing too much. So I kind of spent a lot of my time looking at every YouTube video on producing, every book on producing I could find, podcasts, literally everything I could find, because I had a good idea, but it's like doing a short is absolutely nothing like doing a feature film.
Right, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's kind of like my background, really. So it's kind of come very much from a 9-to-5 world of, job, stress, do that, not creative at all, apart from like the photography side. And it was kind of Leroy, really. And actually I've really grown to really love the industry and really love producing. And I'm very much more of a methodical person.
Yeah.
So I think it suits me better. So that's kind of how I sort of started, I guess.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it all makes sense, because you did have photography, I think anyone who has an interest in what the lens can reveal, does sort of, that speaks to the creative, gene in you. And then on top of it being really, being a producer is such a lot of people don't understand what it is, they're like, what is producing? And it's like, you bring it all together, you like, basically facilitate the creation of this living, breathing thing. So it definitely takes a particular personality. And I think having background in event production is really, really good. Some of the best producers I know produce live events.
Yeah.
Always, just because they love it and they just love, I think they just get off on the adrenaline, of like pulling something off on time and coming in on budget.
Yeah, it's very similar. I mean, I never saw it, and he was like, "You're not seeing it like it's the same." I'm like, "It's not. It's completely different." But it's not. It's it's kind of the difference, I suppose, is you still have like the 3-4 month prep, like for Cannes, for the press stunts I've done, which were for Sony Pictures. So I freelance for a company, and they were kind of one of my clients. So I've got that kind of background and how the publicity works with major feature films. But it's kind of like, you have this intense 3-4 months pre-production, which is very similar to producing a film, hopefully a bit more pre-production if you're lucky. And then it's kind of all in focusing, but it's down to literally, 2-day build and then 3 minutes, and it's like, and then it's done. And then you're like, oh, okay, now it's all finished. The difference is it's the same amount of like stress up until the sort of the thing happens and the scheduling and stuff. But then with a feature film, you have this on set, and then you've got a whole nother, long marathon afterwards, which I never anticipated to be always harder.
Yes. Post-production. Because in addition to, a much longer shoot that you're, pulling off multiple, days and, a whole thing, post-production, is its own beast. And it adds, it's so important, especially because your film is horror, and horror films, I feel like sound design is one of the most important elements, because those, booms and those, those jump scare moments really rely on it. And just everything. So absolutely. And so so you did 3 short films prior to all of this. And by the way, I'm fascinated that Leroy did. I have such a deep respect for wrestling.
Oh, do you?
Yes. I watched David Arquette's documentary.
Oh, yes.
Have you heard of it or seen it?
I've heard of it. I haven't seen it, but I've heard of it.
It's really good. I had no idea. Like I always knew that professional wrestling, the WWE was sort of theatrical and planned with storylines. I had a friend who was a writer for the WWE, but it's like I blocked myself from the truth that like they still put their bodies through that. They're still, and it's really intense. And it's like a friend of mine described it as sports theater. And I'm like, that's amazing. That's exactly what it is.
I think a lot of people don't realize it. I mean, I knew nothing about it when I met him, but he was professional. He was number one in the UK for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And he actually had a match on WWE and almost got signed. But then the whole journey of, do I really want to do this and go into film? So that kind of come to it. But I think the dedication and like the amount of sort of training you have to have, and it's choreographed, it's staged, but he's still slamming himself down,
still slam and giving a emotional performance, as well.
Very, very intense, and he used to come back and have like massages and
so much respect there, and it's fascinating. But so the three films prior to that, were they like a variety of genre, or were they all sort of in the same realm?
Yeah, they are kind of. I mean, more so because Leroy set up the company Nocturnal Pictures, which is our production company, which very much specializes in sort of darker cinematic movies. Cool. So more so, we pretty much only do action, horror, sci-fi. So we're very much into the dark side of things. So the first two were, so the first one was called Free Man, which was an action film. I mean, that was really much, I was really I don't think I was really producing that personally. It was my first kind of short. Leroy was the main actor in it, and I was kind of like, I don't really know what's going on. But I kind of put people together. So that's an action. Second one was called Max Payne Retribution, which is actually a fan film. So the reason I don't know if you've heard of Max Payne.
I have, yeah. So right when you said that, I was like, oh, I know Max Payne, yeah.
Yeah. So we kind of were like, okay, if we're going to do a short film, let's do something like a fan film, completely non-profit. Everyone pretty much works for free. But because we could do a fan-inspired film, it gave us a bit more clout and leverage in terms of the press and people and like the audience that we can get from that. And a lot of those audience that from that film actually have carried on to see what we're going to do next. That's so that kind of really paid out doing that. And
that's one of the things with like indie film is, finding your audience and, because that's kind of the only way to monetize, is knowing your audience and also building that fan base. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the other one was a short zombie film called Dead Zone. So yeah, still very much dark, Yeah,
definitely.
It's like comedy.
Where are those? Anywhere that people can find them?
Yes, they're all on YouTube. So yeah.
Is like Nocturnal Pictures YouTube, I'm assuming? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So for people listening, they can look up Nocturnal Pictures. Lovely. And The Last Rite. So this is a feature that it hasn't been released yet, so I haven't gotten to see the whole thing, but I did get to see the trailer. And it looks like it deals with, some exorcism type, paranormal aspects. Are you able to share a little bit of the plot?
Yeah, so the story kind of come from so he directed and wrote the film. He was actually shooting in Colombia at the time, doing some stunt work on Jack Ryan, and he came up with the idea then, but it was kind of the inspiration kind of come from as a child he actually experienced sleep paralysis a lot, and he used to have really bad night terrors. And he used to see the shadow figures, and he used to have terrible night terrors. And I think it's such a worldwide known phenomenon, sleep paralysis. So many people suffer with. So it's kind of got a bit of that in it, and like you say, a bit of exorcism. But basically it follows Lucy, who's a medical student, and she suffers from these night terrors and sleep paralysis. And she moves in with her boyfriend, and then becomes plagued by this demonic entity. And she's kind of stuck between sanity and the unknown and the supernatural. And it kind of all unravels darkly from there.
Yeah. And that's always such a fascinating, I always think about with that kind of thing, like I was just having this conversation the other night, actually, in terms of like that experience of like where you don't know if you're going insane or not, you know, because if something like that is like, if there is any sort of, because it's my wife, she has very, very intense dreams. She's like the type who wakes up and like feels like she was living a whole new life. She wakes up exhausted because her dreams are so intense. Yeah. And so we were talking about like, you know, when you're experiencing something that's like not necessarily like of this world per se, that thing of like how do you know if you're losing your mind? Like, how do you know if it's all in your head or if it's actually real or not? And so that type of stuff, anything that deals with otherworldly things always intrigues me, you know. It's
totally. No, it's me exactly the same. And it's kind of that thing as well. It's like, because in the film, she obviously is with she moves in with her boyfriend, and he's a bit like, oh, what are you talking about, you know? Really something. And very much are probably a lot of relationships, and I'm not, it depends on the types, if they believe in, you know, ghosts or supernatural or things not of this world. But to experience something like that you really do think is real, but then your partner is like, I think you're just crazy kind of thing. Yeah, that's really difficult. And then that combined with, you know, the no sleep from the sleep paralysis, too scared to go to sleep. And yeah, there's a number of factors play into it. And then your mind kind of, works overtime with it. But
exactly.
It's terrifying.
Viral. Absolutely. That's amazing. And you, so the amazing thing about this, so how did you go about getting funding for it?
Okay, so when we decided, okay, this is it, we're going to do it. So the reason we jumped straight into this was, you know, we were kind of very serious. We wanted to push the company. We wanted to make Nocturnal Pictures, you know, this kind of company in the UK that specializes in this kind of darker type of cinematic film. And it's both films we love to watch. And we were like, we want to, you know, take it further and stop waiting, you know, for people to give us the opportunity. You know, we were first time filmmakers, and it was tough. So we spoke to a few investors, and it's the same thing that probably every filmmaker says, you know, we haven't really seen what you've done, and can you really do a feature? And it's like, well, yes, we can. We need the money. So we had a few of those conversations, but it came down to it where we were just like, you know, we just want to do it, and we're going to do it. So what we ended up doing was, from some of the work that Leroy had done and from my work, we actually funded it ourselves.
Oh, amazing.
Which I wouldn't highly recommend to everyone, but for us, it really worked and paid out really well. And I think if you do really believe in what you're doing, then I think you have to have skin in the game. You know?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you can believe in your idea and, you know, really know how to execute this type of film and the sort of type of film that you want to make, then I think you just go for it. You can't, this industry, sometimes you can end up waiting for everyone to give you the opportunity to do it. So yeah, we had the money, super low budget. We both had the money, we put the money in, and then we had obviously the UK film tax credit as well. So that's kind of how we funded it and how we managed to get moving so quickly. And I don't think we probably would have shot it by now if we waited for investment at the level we are. Yeah, so that's kind of how we started.
That's amazing. Kudos to you for taking the leap. And when you decided to take the leap, like what was the window there? How quickly did you go into production?
So scripting was, I want to say, I think it was about September 2018. And I think he finished the script in about 3 or 4 months. So around January 2019, the script was pretty much done. We had the money, we had half the money. Actually, we thought we had enough money. I can remember what happened now. I thought we had enough money, and we were like, right, let's go. And we started casting, and we had castings sort of between February to April 2019.
Okay.
At which point, the day before, our main lead cast, so Bethan Waller, who plays Lucy, at the time Leroy was actually working as a bouncer, a doorman in the US, and he got into an accident because it was really cold. So it was really cold. He was on the doors and there was a big fight in this club. He didn't actually do anything, but where he went from inside to outside and tried to stop this fight, he actually tore his bicep off.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
It was actually, so his bicep went up here.
Oh my God.
Really bad.
Yeah.
And I get a phone call at like 3 a.m. going, I'm like, oh, you want picking up now? Are you sure you finished? He's like, I'm actually in the hospital. I was like, oh, what? He was like, yeah, I've actually torn my bicep, and it was literally like, yeah, terrible.
Oh, wow.
So I ended up he had to have emergency surgery to attach it back on, because with biceps and tendons, you actually only get about 72 hours whether you can reattach it. Otherwise, you have to either just leave it and lose your
function,
muscle strength. Yeah, it's crazy. So I was like, oh, okay, we're kind of like going to be filming potentially in May. What's going to happen? So we ended up having to push back everything that we'd booked, castings, because we booked locations. We were actually due to start shooting sort of, I think it was April, May 2019, but because he had to have 6 months off to rest, because he was going to be shooting the film as well, so carrying like, you know, a 15-pound camera, it's quite, crazy. So anyway, we pushed that back, which gave us more time just to get a bit more money in, and we actually ended up shooting August 2019. So from script to then, it was probably about 8 months. So it's quite quick. About 8-9 months. And then the filming was 36 days. So
wow. Yeah, that's a very long, you know, especially for an indie project. Yeah, so we kind of are usually like, we're gonna film a whole feature in 10 days, you know, like when
I say that, I'm like, wow, we're like, crazily long. But I think because of people's schedules and the budget, we had to be a bit more flexible.
And it allows you so much more so much less stress. I mean, it's still stressful for sure, but like you have a lot more room to make sure that you get everything that you need to get.
So we kind of it was about 36 days, so we spread some of the other location scenes over the period of about 3 months, just to allow for people's schedules. But the main block of filming we did in a chunk, which was all in the main house. So we managed to book the house, which was a bit more cost effective, for like 3 or 4 weeks, and then we could do all the main scenes then. So probably start to finish, script to finishing post is probably just under 3 years, and I think that probably would have been a bit quicker if it wasn't for COVID.
Sure. I'm sure that was I mean that
annoying.
everyone's plan. But I'm impressed that having had that accident, that still it was like, okay, we're pushing this and we're gonna start in August, because I feel like so many people would have been so like, oh, the universe is, you know, trying to, you know, would have gotten so beaten down by that. So that's I mean, I'm so glad that Leroy and yourself both had the, you know, the resilience to keep going. You know,
the first thing he said to me was like, oh, I'm not going to be able to hold the camera. I'm like, shall we worry about your arm first before we worry about if you can hold the camera? We can move filming. It's fine.
Good. I'm so glad it worked out. That's you know, I mean, when you're independent film, there's always so many setbacks that and so many, you know, unforeseen circumstances that, you know, when you have the backing of a studio, a lot of that stuff can be bypassed. It's like, that location dropped off, but they have, we're going to build one in the studio, a replica. We're going to build the exact same thing, you know, like when you're doing something like this, you know, the smallest thing can be completely, you know, it can handicap the whole production. So
yeah, totally. I mean, there's so many things that just happen and you're just like, really anything else? But I'm so used to it now just from doing event work. I think if you haven't experienced, you know, things just constantly happening and going wrong, then, you know, it's going to be quite difficult. But I think once you kind of get to the understanding of trying to, you know, navigate that and make sure and anticipate what could happen and what you can do, I think that's all you can do, really.
Yeah, to be as prepared as possible, just in case. My background was in stand-up, and so I had produced live comedy shows for years, and I don't even think I realized how much doing those live events had also, you know, prepared me for, you know, for, because in those situations, like you'd mentioned before, it's like, you know, it's like, this is a one day only situation. Like it's in this moment, and you attack it and you fix it, you know, or else. So it definitely creates some survival techniques and stuff in producers.
But stand up, I mean, God, that's another level. That must be, to me, that's absolutely terrifying.
I think wrestling is totally terrifying.
Yeah, true. That's not me though.
All my own money into a feature film, so that's also very you know, brave
true
as well. Yeah. I love that. And you mentioned that it worked out for you guys, and you have found distribution. It's coming out. It's being distributed by Samuel Goldwyn.
Yes.
Yeah, which is huge. That's
massive.
Congratulations on that. Number
Thank
one.
you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And so tell us a little bit of, oh, go ahead. What?
I was just going to say it was a tough road, but we got there. Got there in the end.
Well, so how did you go about the distribution track? And then, just tell us how you went from finishing the film to distribution.
Okay, so we finished filming obviously just before COVID, and then we had post from 2020. So that kind of the whole post process was during COVID, which was difficult because not only was it our first time doing post for a feature, we couldn't necessarily go to the studio and sit in with the sound guys. And so we kind of had to do a lot of that over Zoom, which took up a little bit longer time than we anticipated, just going backwards and forwards with notes and things. But yeah, so post, we kind of thought we'd finished around, I want to say like May time, and we were trying to hit deadlines for festivals. But once we'd submitted to a few festivals, we did some more tweaks, and we started reaching out to a few agents then. And we had a few notes about the film, saying it was a tiny bit too long and a little bit slow for a horror film in the beginning. So we made some tweaks and adjustments and cut some bits of the film out, and it actually ended up being so much better, and hence it's got to Samuel Goldwyn now. Pretty much all of 2020 was post. We applied.
What a great time for post in a way, even though COVID,
in a way.
but sit in front of a computer, so yay.
Yeah, exactly. And we had time to, Leroy had more time to finesse it a little bit, so he edited it as well and graded it, so it was just
wow.
I don't know how he done all of that, if I'm honest with you. But yeah, he pretty much start to finish carried the film, if I'm honest. So post in 2020, and then we had our world premiere at Fright Fest, which was actually supposed to be in 2020. So we got into the festival for August 2020. But then over here in the UK, lockdowns happened again and everything closed. So we actually waited a whole nother year, and we had the premiere 2021, just gone August. So that was an in-person screening and premiere. And, which was amazing. It was really nice after waiting for such a long time. And the cast and crew hadn't seen the film at all. So it was kind of like, it was a nice little reunion for everyone as well.
Absolutely. So. Yeah. I love that. And so after the premiere, anyway, so after that, how did you end up getting,
So we had a sales agent in the US who took worldwide rights, and then they have just basically been selling each territory. And then we obviously got a deal with Samuel Goldwyn. So they really liked the film. And they didn't have much horror, and they were kind of more interested in getting involved in some more horror, especially British horror films. That's kind of how that deal came about. But I would say it took a good maybe 5-6 months from starts of conversations. So from learning on that whole process, I would definitely say to other filmmakers and producers, go talk to as many people as you can, but also don't rush into deals that you think are the only deal you're going to get, because we did have other deals, and it kind of was made to feel like, you might not get anything better, almost
never that pressure of like,
and there is no pressure, like we had companies chasing us and like wanting the film, but they, if they want the film, they will take the film, and it doesn't have to be within 3 days or a week, So that's kind of definitely one process I learned, is not to rush and to really believe in your product, and you will find the right home for it. And that's what we did. We waited, and it did get to a point and I was like, oh God, are we gonna get the right company, especially for the US, because it's like the biggest market. But we waited, and we obviously got Samuel Goldwyn, which is incredible. I'm really excited about it.
It's really, really awesome. So congratulations. I can't wait to see it. When does it come out?
It comes out on the 26th of November in the US and Canada. We're still in talks with UK at the moment, so we don't know when the UK will be. But so hopefully on all digital platforms.
Amazing. I will mark my calendar for that.
Please do.
And so, I mean, you're working with, your partner, your romantic partner, and that is, I've talked to a lot of indie filmmakers who do that. I feel like, when you are on the independent level, that support and having that like person in your corner is really like almost essential, you know, to get to making stuff happen. If you don't have like a friend that you're, you know, like your business partner, like, but it's almost better. I feel I've got friends who work with their significant other, and they're just so proactive, you know, because they live together and they just are constantly churning out things. And did you find that it has been, is it challenging, or do you feel that it's, you know, do you think there's more benefit to it or more challenges as a result?
Oh, it's a tough one. It's difficult to say. I mean, we've been together 16 years now.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, a very really long time.
I mean, you look like you're 16. I'm like, how is that possible?
I was going to say, I look a lot younger than I actually am. Yeah, so we've been together a really long time. It's weird because, you know, our relationship has always been creative in a way. So we've always done something together. So when he was obviously wrestling, I would do photography for him, and then when I was doing the photography, he would come and help out in the shoots, and we've kind of always done something. So it's kind of
like a natural evolution in a way.
Yeah, it kind of is for us. It is, and it really works well. I mean, it's not like we don't argue, we do, and we clash. You know, for the Last Rite, we actually, me, Leroy, and the lead actress stayed in the house for the whole for the whole of the shoot, which was intense, especially doing horror and then obviously sleeping at like
6, and especially for Leroy, who you know had night terrors and stuff.
Exactly. And he's like bringing more into the house of like the demonic. But yeah, no, I think I really enjoy it, and actually we've evolved together as a couple, and also professionally. We both are so hardworking and passionate about what we want to do, and it's really hard to trust people in this industry as well, I find. So I think when you've got a good unit and you both want the same thing, and you're both like, no one's going to push your film harder than you and your partner, you know, and we're both obviously the main people on the film, you know, it just works. And I think you really do need someone in this industry, especially I think I personally, if I didn't have someone else that I could like bat and talk to, I'd find producing really, really difficult being on your own. And I think you really need to have, if you don't have either a support group or a support network or your partner, you really do need someone, because it can get quite lonely. There's so much to do on your own and at your own pace. Yeah, I find it really works. I mean, it does end up consuming our entire life, if I'm honest.
Yes.
We'll go out for dinner and it'd be like, should we not talk? But actually we need to do that. So I
mean, that's definitely going to come with the territory. But you know, some couples after 16 years don't have anything to talk about. So at least you have something to talk about. Yeah, I love that. I think it's really inspiring. And also, like you said, like, you know, you get to go into negotiations with like a partner that you know is going to have your back, you know, so you're not, if one of you is sort of feeling something, but the other one has a bad feeling, you can talk about that, you know, and really have that trust in one another. You know, I had produced a film with individuals that I didn't have that strong, you know, bond with. One of them I didn't know until we'd, you know, hired them as a director. And so like in hindsight, it's one of those things where I think the trust just wasn't there. If we'd known each other a little better and trusted each other a little more, we could have maybe made different decisions. Because I think, you know, all of us are very, you know, we've got good heads on our shoulders, and we all had great intentions, and, you know, we just didn't have we didn't have long-standing relationships, so we didn't know to trust each other in particular situations. I think. And so that's like it's definitely something that I've learned, like, you know, from here on out, the individuals that I partner with, like I am going to make an effort to make sure that I know them, you know, as a human being, in addition to being fans of their work or.
Yeah. I think you have to. I mean, it's really difficult. It's like when you hire crew and, you know, actors and things, it's really hard to know. You can try and understand people's personalities and, you know, their style, but it is quite difficult to know, you know, what they're going to be like, because once people get on set, it can be a different thing. But yeah, you're totally right. I think you have to nurture relationships and people, and I think eventually you will know whether they're kind of your people, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And whether you can kind of, you know, flow with them and gel with them, and they're the right type of energy. But also I was going to say, I know obviously I've grown throughout my career, and obviously doing the films with Leroy. I think it's also quite important to know that, you know, with a director, like, I really understand how he works and his vision and how strong his vision is.
Yes.
And I think that is something that really aids what we do. And because we're both quite different people. Like, I'm very much, you know, organizing people, you know, very much more of a methodical organizer as such, and producer. And he's very much like, you know, top level, very creative. He gets very focused in on the creative, which is amazing for what he does. And I think you really need to know how to work with those people. And I think that's one thing that we have, is that we both get each other's strengths and weaknesses. And I think if you're going to, not whether you're with your partner or not, but if you're going to work with someone like that, I think that's really, really key to know and to help you. Definitely.
Absolutely. And what you just said too, you know, about that you understand his vision. I think it's really key for any director to have producers who see their vision, because, you know, when it comes to like, if you're being financed by outside financiers and you've got investors, you know, the producer gets to be, you know, they're like a liaison, you know, and if the director isn't maybe, you know, if the director's so focused on the creative aspect, they need that person handling the business, handling the day-to-day, that's not going to jeopardize their creative vision, you know? So absolutely. I think that's great. And it's great that you realize that. And it's great that you see all of it. And there was something that you said that I had wanted to follow up on, but I don't quite remember, but that's okay. Well, I did have something else. And then if it comes up again, we'll jump back. But so, okay. So you guys have done this feature together. You pulled it off. You got distribution. It's coming out. I mean, so exciting. It's like birthing. It is. I mean, it's a living, breathing thing. It's a life. You created a life. Do you guys already have something in the works next? Are you ready to get going again? How do you, what's next for Nocturnal Pictures?
We do. And Lee was like, as soon as we've like sent it off, I'm like, right, this next one. I'm like, hang on, can we at least like enjoy it coming out a little bit, you know, just a minute. But it's, you know, you've worked on it for so long, and it's like, it gets to the point of release and you're like, oh my God, I need a like breath. So it's kind of, I find it hard to move straight into it, but now I'm ready to like really enjoy having other people see it. I'm so excited. So the only people that have seen it obviously at Fright Fest, which is physical. So yeah, it's exciting. But yes, we have actually 2 other feature films in development. Actually, one was written before this one, but it was a much higher budget, which is called Facility 7.
What's it called?
Facility 7.
Facility 7.
Yeah, it's an action horror. So that's in development, but probably the next one we're probably going to look at pushing, which I'm working on at the moment, is called Hollow Ones, which is a home invasion horror film.
Okay,
so,
cool.
A little bit darker, a little bit more intense. I'm not sure people need more horror at the moment, but yeah, so that's kind of one we're working on at the moment. So script's almost complete on that one.
Beautiful. And I actually, you know what, it's so crazy. I mean, and that one sounds, you know, probably a little more financially simpler, because if it's home invasion, it's probably, you know, more budget friendly. But I actually, you know, you just said the thing about people not maybe needing more horror right now. It's so funny because, you know, you see the success of things like Squid Game, right? On the mass scale. And I feel that, I think because we've been through so much darkness, that we think, oh, maybe we need some more cheerful content. But I actually feel like, I think we need the experience of catharsis. We need to watch the darkness. And
we just need more.
Yes, we do. So I feel like it's a great time for that kind of stuff. I never thought of myself as a horror, you know, aficionado or major fan. I always watched it, and I certainly appreciated it, especially you know, those ones that really changed the game, like Saw, or you know, stuff like that. My wife was in Hostel 2, so like, you know, she's and Scream 3, so she's got some horror fans.
Amazing.
So you know, I never but lately it's like I'm becoming more and more obsessed with horror, like really following the genre. Yeah, it's wild. And I do think that the pandemic did make me become more invested in it for sure. So
yeah. I think that's with a lot of people. I think sometimes when you watch horror, it's like, okay, well, maybe life isn't as bad as this that's happening on screen, perhaps. And I think there's so much great horror at the moment as well. There's so much great stuff coming out, like you say, Squid Game, and what did I just watch? Oh, Midnight Mass on Netflix.
Oh, I haven't seen Midnight Mass.
Which is really good. It's very much like a religious Bible vampire series. It's really good.
Cool.
So would you not want to produce a horror with your wife as an actress?
I have an idea for horror. Yeah, I do. And so and initially it's so funny because I'd had the idea, and it was a male in my head, and I said it, and she's like, well, I would say, why can't I play that? I would, that's a role I would actually want to. And I was like, oh, well, duh. And I'm so like, how could I not think of casting a female?
Damn it.
I'm always very much like female protagonist. But yeah, so it's definitely something that I'm open to. I never thought I would venture away from comedy, but I'm suddenly very intrigued by genre, and horror is at the top of the list. So
amazing. Yeah. Oh, you have to keep me updated. I'd love to see.
Definitely. And you guys too. I'm so excited for you, and I love the Nocturnal Pictures logo.
Thank you.
Yeah, even just like that small detail, I'm like, oh, I love the infinity sign. And then hearing the background, it makes such sense why that would be the company name that you two.
Yeah, it's very much like Leroy literally doesn't sleep. He works through the night, and very much nocturnal. And I think every film we're going to end up doing is going to be night shoots, probably.
Sure. That's good though. You guys know what your brand is. So I love that. So I love the short films. You guys have a couple features in the works. Are you open to, now that you've had this experience of going from, you're funding something yourself, to getting it, distributed globally, do you feel like, are you willing to try to get those deals with like other companies and studios now? Or do you feel like, you know what, we did something successfully once ourselves? Do you want to try to build on it that way?
No, I'm definitely open to getting sort of going bigger, getting better deals, talking to studios, talking to the streamers, 100%. I think I wouldn't be adverse to doing it this way again. But I would like to get more people involved. And I'd like to, because obviously I've learned so much producing this film, literally from knowing nothing apart from a few books. So now I know the kind of backbone, especially more around, the deliverable side, talking to sales agents and distribution. I mean, it's a whole nother strength to do all of that and manage them.
Yes.
So I think, I wouldn't be adverse to, but I think we both would like to just push ourselves a bit more. And, now we've done that film, we can see so much more of how much we can do better with more budget. If we can get more budget, we can make something even better. So I think, the plan would be for the next one would be to try and get cast attached and pre-sales and try and finance it and package it a bit more advanced, I'd say.
Totally. I love that. And because now you guys have, like you said, those first meetings were very much like, can you do a feature? And now it's like, bitch, we did it. Told you.
Check it out. It's on there. Have a look. But it definitely proves, people, I was going to say, there's so many people that I'd spoke to that were just like, oh, I don't think you can do that. And I don't think you should make it on such a low budget. And, are you sure you can? And it's like this, you just have to shut these people up because you just have to believe in what you're doing. And I'll be honest, I didn't at the start. I really didn't. And without Leroy, I was like, oh my God, are we doing the right thing? Can we really do this? Are we going to get through this? We really are completely green at this. But, you work it out and you take each step as it comes and you can do it. And I'm talking from someone that is not even in the industry really, apart from the last 4 or 5 years. So you can. And I think a lot of people do get scared about it and think, if they can't get, this cast or this finance or this person, then they can't do it. No, you can. You just have to get out there and do it. And you do need that. For me, you need that support system. Because you could just hear everything in everyone's nose and be like, I can't do it.
Yeah, it can get in there,
It really can.
I love that piece of advice, for filmmakers, because, when I decided to do my feature, it very much was like one day I was at my day job. I had a day and I just looked up and I was like, I'm going to make a feature film. And people were like, this friend of mine, Leslie, was there and she was like, cool, and walked away. But that was all she said. She very much just yesed me. And I just was like, you know what? Somebody witnessed me say that and they didn't say, are you crazy? So maybe it's possible, and so, and now I find myself constantly believing that now that I've done it once, I know I can do it again, and still people are like, but I mean, so that's a great piece of advice. If you could, oh, go ahead. What?
I was going to say, but because you did the same sort of thing with your film, didn't you? For your feature, did you kind of do the same?
I mean, I did it we did it all ourselves. I mean, we crowdfunded a portion, which was like a full-time job as well. Hustling everyone, for money and trying to get the word out. And it is hard. That's a hard, aspect in and of itself, because, you even see how people don't want you to succeed, it's very revealing. One of my best friends from life didn't from seventh grade didn't support the film, and so we're no longer friends. And it's that thing. It's like, it wasn't about money, it was about support. Like, you didn't even retweet it out. You didn't even, you wouldn't even share it with anyone. And when confronted with that, it was the thing of like, oh, to my 500 followers, that was going to do nothing. And it's like, it doesn't matter. Just to even know cared enough. So it's really like something like crowdfunding is really revealing, about people's true character and whether or not they root for you. But yeah, and then we also put our own money in as well. And I had a few small friends who invested small amounts of money, like $8,000, $5,000, like that type of those types of investments. But yeah, otherwise crowdfunding, and then the three producers, we all had, around 15, 20 grand a piece in the film. So
that's amazing. I mean, we did a tiny bit of crowdfunding for one of our shorts, and like you say, hard. Really hard work. And then you got to do all the perks afterwards. It's like, oh god.
Yes, that's a whole nother thing. I actually have a great, my wife and I, we are shopping around a film now that we acquired the script for, and we were gonna, the initial idea was to crowdfund because she does have a bit of a fan base. And I was like, we can do this, but do I want to go down that road again? So we're like, let's try the legitimate way. We're going to try to get funding. But I do have this idea where I'm like, I think if we do go the crowdfunding route, fuck the perks. The only perk is, and there's not even more amounts. It's just pre-buy the movie.
Yeah.
Pre-buy the movie, and just charge $20 and try and get, 10,000 people to give you $20, try it. Let's see,
gotta try it.
It would be something like that if I ever did it again. But we've got some good leads right now. So hopefully it doesn't come to that, but
Oh, good. Yeah, you're totally right about people supporting. I mean, there's people that I thought would sort of share and talk about the trailer that we released. And it just shows you, some people are kind of like watching and some people are just, really supportive. And I find it's, people that you maybe know the least that are kind of background supporters seem to champion you the hardest.
It's the truth. Yeah.
And I just don't get it. And it's bizarre, but hey.
Yeah. You really realize who's really a frenemy, I love that. And you just dropped this great piece of advice. But if there was anything else that you could, any sort of piece of wisdom that you feel like you could impart on indie filmmakers aside from shutting out the no's, is there anything else that you would say?
There's probably so many. Don't freak out. I freaked out on a regular and I was like, no, it's okay, I got it, it's all good. I would just say everything happens for a reason, and it's taken me such a long time to understand that, from us having paid for locations and then Leroy's arm happening and being like, oh my God, our biggest thing has happened, we can't shoot. No, it meant we could have more time, we could get more money and we could shoot, And then when COVID happened, that delayed. And then it was like, actually, no, that meant that we could wait for Fright Fest and have a physical festival. Mm-hmm. So I think it is so tough. And I know how tough it is. And people are going to be like, yeah, it's easier said than done. But more so after you finish shooting, it is so important to just trust the process and really try and model patience. It's really difficult, but it really does pay out, and the right things will happen for you, and then the right deals and the right connections will come, and it will be worth it and exactly what you need for your film.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah, that was hard. That was really difficult. I must admit, I think from finishing post through the whole sales distribution process, I found probably the hardest out of the whole thing. But you have to go through it to learn it, and then you can see what you do and don't do going forward. So,
absolutely. Yeah. And the patience, finding people are so impatient in this industry because we're like,
oh my God. But it also, I think, moves excessively slow sometimes as well.
It does. So it makes sense that we try to rush stuff,
Yeah.
But when the universe throws you a sign like Leroy and COVID, you just, and it all paid off in the end because totally. Maybe Samuel Goldwyn wouldn't have been interested in British horrors a year earlier,
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
I think that's probably, and I would say, try and give yourself, I know everyone says this, but try and give yourself as much pre-production prep time as possible. I think you need to just, especially if you're making a low budget independent film, the more time and less stress you can give yourself, the better in the long run. We didn't have to reshoot anything. We had to do one day of inserts. I mean, we did have like 36 days, so if we had 10 we might have had to reshoot things. But yeah, I think just give yourself as much time as you can and plan and prep, and you'll be fine. You can do it.
Yeah, you can do it. I love it. Thank you so much. I feel like this was such an informative and like a genuinely like the kind of conversation that shows people that they can do it, and if they have an interest in it and believe in themselves, like they can totally switch careers and do it. It's definitely possible. So thank you so much for this. I really appreciate the conversation. Aside from Nocturnal Pictures on YouTube, is there any other place that people should look for you guys?
Our website is obviously nocturnalpictures.co.uk, and obviously the film The Last Rite, RITE, is on Instagram and Twitter. And if you're in the US, we'd love you to watch it, coming out next month.
Beautiful. Yeah, I will definitely watch it first thing and share about it, because that's what this is all about. Perfect. Thank you so much, Chloe. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I've enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.